Tommy Brunson. It's about the David Bomber Pearce fight. Well, I'm a big fan of Dave's. All 6'1" of him and 200 pounds of muscle. A proper geezer. Listen, we want that statue. That legendary statue. Of David Bomber Pearce. Now let's do it.
Seconds out, round 3.
Oh, right hand. Another left, and I think he's gone. He pitches.
David was absolutely phenomenal.
He just generated so much power with one punch. He was feared.
A left hand. David Pearce chalks up another scalp.
We had a boxer that was going to rule the world.
But something wasn't quite right. Isn't that so?
I was extremely upset for David.
He said, I'll never stop training, and I'm going to fight this.
This is a nightmare. Honestly, I just can't believe what has gone on.
Welcome to Pill in Newport, South Wales. You don't hear many good things said about this place. It's notorious as one of the roughest parts of the UK. But 40 years ago, these streets were home to a man so remarkable that his impact is still felt here today.
Thank you for coming here today to Pill Harriers Rugby Football Club. We're here for the David Bomber Pearce legacy, Newport's Rocky. We're a registered charity. This is our first registered charity event, and the funds that will be raised here today will not only go to supporting young amateur individuals, they will go to teams, clubs, and we're just looking now to support Newport as a community.
David Bomber Pearce was a champion heavyweight boxer. But to these people, he means a lot more than that. And to understand why, you have to go back to the beginning.
Take the Bronx and go a little bit further down, and then you won't let you get the Pill. It was rough, but everybody helped each other.
Everybody looked out for everyone else.
It was good community. Everybody cared.
And at the heart of this community was one legendary family.
Everybody knew of the Pearces. They were locally famous, I suppose you could say.
We all grew up in Pill, 7 brothers, 2 sisters. It was crazy, to be honest with you, but it was fantastic. They were all loving. My parents were really loving.
There was 3 or 4 beds in the boys' room and 1 in the girls' room and my mother and father's bedroom.
Was it chaotic in the house?
At times it would be absolutely first up, best dressed. It was hectic. We had lots of fun.
We got a lot of characters in the family. We was brought up with respect, see, so you understand that we acted with respect.
And at the head of the family was their dad, Walter Wally Pearce.
I used to look at Walter Pearce. He'd stand on the doorstep and he'd have his body be oiled, he'd be in the sunset with his long glistening hair, and I just used to think he's Tarzan, you know.
His family was from the booth fighters of years ago. All these brothers boxed in them.
Dad was a big man, strict, but soft.
My father instilled a lot of principles, a lot of discipline, especially as far as training and looking after yourself.
And when it came to training his boys on how to box, Wally had his own unique methods.
He'd have us running up the park, wearing heavy boots. He'd tie a piece of string across the back garden where you'd bob and weave.
You used to put 1 house brick on the floor and then 1 at the end of it, and you had to lift it up from the floor with a straight hand, up and down. That was to build the forearms up.
We couldn't afford gloves in them days, to be honest. So Dad used to wrap tea towels around our hands, and that's how we'd spar.
Wally's training methods may have been unorthodox, but he got results. And as the brothers grew older, 6 of them became professional boxers.
We were all champions. I was Eastern Division. They were all Welsh champions, British champions.
They were all brilliant boxers. Gary was a clever boxer. Ronald was a fast boxer. Bimbo was a brilliant boxer as well. He was very good. They all held the Welsh titles, every one of them.
All of the Pearce boys were talented, but it soon became obvious that one of them was really special.
David was absolutely phenomenal, David. He was one on his own.
He was really, really good, you know what I mean, exceptionally good. Coming up, it's something you would spot a mile away.
David was at a level all of his own because of his dedication and what he put in.
He even found a job that would help his boxing at the local steelworks.
The job he had was tough. They put him in the furnaces. They just had him in there all day shoveling. That's all he did was shovel, shovel, shovel. Anything he thought would make him stronger, better, that's what David wanted, you know?
At the age of 19, David made his professional debut as a heavyweight boxer.
So, 2 young men, 2 young heavyweights making their professional debut, and there's no doubt which side the main part of the crowd is on.
It took just 13 seconds for David to show he was the real deal.
A left hand from David Pearce. Puts down Osborne Taylor. Osborne Taylor from Jamaica. Oh, there's a cool wind blowing in Jamaica right now. There's another left hand. The crowd comes to their feet.
At only 5'11", David was small for a heavyweight, but that didn't stop him.
He's an enormous fella, the Swansea boy, 6'4".
We'd watch his fights and you'd think, this is like, it's a mismatch. His fights are always like that. He always seemed to be fighting giants.
David Yucca Pearce giving weight away for practically nothing else.
They were always like a stone heavier or 2, 3, 4, 5, you know? Any good trainer will tell you that's hard to overcome. But David used to love it.
And he's in trouble now as Pearce caught him with that downward swinging left hand.
He didn't have great boxing ability. He wasn't a slick mover, but he was very heavy-handed, determined and very brave.
He just generated so much power with one punch, he could take these heavyweights out. So he was feared.
David Pearce chalks up another scalp. His 9th straight win, 6 inside the distance.
What David lacked in size and technique, he made up for with raw power and courage.
Well, we've seldom seen such full-blooded attacking. He's got him over at last. And Pearce has won the fight, and Pearce has gone berserk. 23-year-old David Pearce, the bomber they call him, from Newport.
The bomber was making a name for himself as one of the best up-and-coming heavyweights around. And as his success grew, so did his popularity back home in Pill.
He used to run up and down the steps of the transporter bridge. And sometimes he'd run up and then go over, and down the other side and then back from where he started. Everywhere he went, he ran. And everywhere he went, he had a friend.
He would walk down the street and, you know, he'd have a professional fight probably a few weeks later and he'd talk to Joe Bloggs.
You see him out training and brutalising himself, full of sweat. He's the type of chap that would run past a little old lady with shopping bags, and if she spoke to him, he'd jog on the spot and have a polite conversation with her. He was just a nice guy, you know.
In 1983, David got his big break, a shot at the British heavyweight title. In his way stood the champion, Neville Mead. Taller and heavier than Pearce, and with one of the hardest punches in the game.
David, Neville Mead has been saying, and I quote, that if you had any sense, you wouldn't be getting in the same ring as him on Thursday night.
Well, you can say what he likes, really. The fact is, I will be there on the night, and I'm sure he'll be there. Well, I think he'll be there. I think it'll be a great fight while it lasts. It's not going to last long.
I wouldn't say it's a no contest, but I'm not going. When I go in the ring, I'm going in with one thing in my mind: destruct and destroy. I'm going to destroy Pearce.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Newport, the challenger, David Pearce. And from Swansea, the heavyweight champion of Great Britain, Neville Mead.
He's just a gigantic, huge heavyweight. When they made the match, I was overawed, but I sat there watching it, really. It was a great occasion. Like, it was a huge fight.
I was sat there, I was just in a world of my own, I was, just watching him. Oh, he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Neville Mead on the left, David Pearce on the right. And what a contest this promises to be. It's not going to be a long one, both big punches. Those punches are getting through Pearce's guard. Oh, good uppercut from Pearce. And Pearce gives a huge smile to his supporters. And it's Pearce's turn, he grins, but comes running back in at Mead. And Mead's in a bit of trouble.
For the next 6 rounds, Pearce and Mead gave everything they had.
Half a minute to go in round 8. And again, Pearce, good punches now. Mead's in trouble.
But punch by punch, Pearce wore Mead down.
Pearce, and Mead is not out on his feet, but his legs look very, very rubbery. And it's Pearce again finishing strongest as the round comes towards an end.
I was just watching him, and then all of a sudden this punch came from nowhere and I knocked him clean spark out.
Oh, that's a bit, and Mead's out. Pearce has done it in the dying seconds of the 9th round. David Bimbo Pearce is the new British heavyweight champion. The brothers of Pearce and his manager Billy McCarthy and father Wally Pearce all are congratulating the new champion.
I have never ever trained so hard in all my life, and I really wanted it bad for my father, for my new manager, and also for Newport and myself.
Bill, where does David go from here?
He goes to America, and then we've got the European Championship right in front of us. We've got to fight probably for his British title, either against Bruno or against Gardner. But off to America he goes, and we start to defend, start to look for bigger honours.
A marvellous night. Congratulations to you both. David, well done again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It made us proud, so proud. My father was proud, my mother was proud. Oh, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
We had a boxer that was gonna rule the world. This was our Rocky. I know people use that, but he was ours.
He gave others aspirations, I suppose. What stood out for me was he said, I did it for Newport. For me, that's quite inspiring, you know.
David had established himself as one of the UK's most exciting heavyweights, but talent would only get you so far. Boxing was a business, and the London-based promoters already had their golden boy.
Frank Bruno would have been more marketable than David Pearce at that time. He was in London, he was based up there with the big boys, the big names, promoted on the big shows, on the TV shows, and David is just under the radar, really. He was a real threat. He could have he'd been a spanner in the works for Frank Bruno at the time.
Frank Bruno was the one that everybody was talking about, but they just kept them apart. And the reason they kept them apart is because they knew that Dave generated so much power and then he could take him out with one punch.
Away from the limelight, David prepared for his next fight. This time for the European title. But as he trained, David received news that rocked him. A routine brain scan had revealed an abnormality, and the Boxing Board of Control were debating whether it was safe for David to ever fight again.
He's devastated, obviously. You know, it was his life. It's all he knew from a young boy. So, it really did affect him.
Despite their concerns over the scan, the authorities allowed the fight to go ahead. But when he arrived, things went from bad to worse. His small support team had forgotten to book David a hotel room, forcing him to sleep rough the night before the fight. He'd also fractured his hand in training, but David refused to pull out.
Pearce really, he won't give up. He's got the biggest heart in the game. A good right hand from Pearce, and there was a delay there as Rodriguez went down in the 8th round. It was a good shot.
Despite everything that had happened, David hit Rodriguez with everything he had.
And it's a great chance for Pearce. Sort of count him on that one, he sort of pulled him down. There's a few punches thrown. Second count in the 8th.
But it wasn't enough. David's winning run was about to come to an end.
Pearce to do well, really, to stay the full course because he soaked it up towards the end. And my heart goes out to him because this fella's got all the spirit in the world. And it's Rodriguez all the way there. And really, the result is the formality.
I've had a lot of trouble, Reg. I won't go into it. It's more important than that. I've had a lot more trouble than what I've got to the fight. But, you know, I've left it all behind. I've tried my best. I know I can box better, Reg. But, you know, that's the way it goes. I'm sorry, you know, for all the fans back in Wales and Great Britain.
You've had a go, and that's all that matters in this game.
Yeah.
The defeat was a setback for David. But on his return, he was hit by something far harder. The authorities had reviewed his scan and had decided to ban him from boxing.
He was just devastated over it. We all were, actually, because it was something that shouldn't have happened.
You know, I've been boxing for a long time altogether. We're amateur and professional, so I can't see what's wrong. If there is, then I would know myself.
He's not even had a black eye during his boxing career. And he certainly hasn't showed any symptoms of slurred speech or, things that you look out for in a fighter.
Following the ban, David set out to get a second opinion on the abnormality that was picked up by the scan.
The specialist advised David he'd had it from birth. So all those fights, the amateur fights, all the top professional fights, that thing was with David.
I have got a congenital abnormality, but it's not been caused through boxing in no way. And this is what's going on. But as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with David Pearce.
With his new evidence, he went back to the Boxing Board of Control, confident they would return his license to fight.
So what are you expecting today? Do you think that they will come to a resolution in your favour today?
Yes, I hope everything will be fine, and I will be given a clean bill of health, and hopefully I will drop down from heavyweight to cruiserweight and go for the world cruiserweight title, which I'm almost certain I know I can win it.
But the board refused to change their minds.
There is enough evidence, in our opinion, and after all, we've been granting licenses and taking them away for a long time, and we've got to be on the side of safety. Otherwise, we are not doing our job.
There's nothing wrong with me. They know there's nothing wrong with me, and yet I can name at least half a dozen fighters who's been knocked out, and I mean knocked out. They've took terrible beatings, and nothing has been said about them. Not a thing.
So why has the Boxing Board of Control said you can't box?
Exactly. Why? Why have they just come? Why have they come and piled it all on me?
You know, he would still continue to train, and he still had that rocky fire and that sparkle in his eye.
He said, I'll never stop training. He said, and I'll carry on and carry on. He said, and I'm going to fight this, and that's what he did.
If I thought there was anything wrong, then I wouldn't be carrying on. It feels great.
He couldn't let go. He couldn't let go. It was his life. It was his life. How many people can let go of their life?
David wouldn't give up, spending everything he had on consultant after consultant, desperate to get back into the ring.
He saw a total, on my last tally, of 14 consultants in those 2 streets. Now, that's quite some doing. I said at the time that no boxer in the history of pugilism can have had his head examined so much as David Pearce.
Must make you pretty depressed all round us.
The situation is sort of trying to get me down, but I got to keep fighting.
But despite all his efforts, the Boxing Board of Control refused to change their decision, and David's time and money were running out. A year after becoming British champion, he was broke and signing on the dole. With no hope of getting his license back, the Boxing Board asked David to return the belt he'd worked so hard to win.
To be honest with you, this is devastating. It's gone beyond, you know. I'm totally demoralized.
With no money, no job, David had to consider all options.
He was approached by underground boxing, gypsies and what have you, to fight for big money.
I know a promoter who has approached David Pearce, and I know through the pipeline that David Pearce is thinking about it.
What about unlicensed boxing? Would you consider going into that?
Yes, I think I would. In another thing, because, as I said, I don't know nothing else. I'm a professional fighter. I'm not a bricklayer or a carpenter or nothing. And I've been stopped doing my life. It's my life. I don't know anything else.
We didn't want him to go down to that level after him being such a great champion. Thankfully, he listened to that, but he was offered many a time.
David would take up offers to fight in America, but years out of the ring had taken their toll. Back at home, the closest he could get to the big time was as a sparring partner to future world champions like Lennox Lewis, eager to test themselves against his raw power. But David's time as a contender was over.
I tried to say to him, look, a career doesn't just specifically make a person. It's a lot of attributes that you have as a human being, regardless of your career, and if it ends here, look what you achieved.
David had spent his life fighting, and in his late 30s would once again face another battle.
He started to forget a lot, and very emotional, and we'd see little changes in him.
We had a painting on the wall of him, and he used to just stand there and look at it. And it was sad, because at the time he'd stop one or two of the young lads and say, "That's me."
And he got worse.
He's had blackouts and fits.
He was sectioned at one time, which was really upsetting.
He was taken into Whitchurch Hospital in Cardiff.
To go and see him, in a place like that, it just wasn't David. So we were glad when we got him out of there.
David began to rely more and more on his family.
I'd help him dress. We'd go out and have food. Used to love music and films, so we'd watch them, and I'd always get the ones he liked. I went over to his home, and his door was closed, and I thought, there's something not right here. And I went up, and he was slumped over the bath. Black, blue, really. Blood pouring from him. I tried to bring him back, not realising that obviously he was gone. When the coroner and the doctors came and spoke to me, they said, look, you know, there was nothing you could have done. He'd had a massive fit. Just, I don't know, it was so weird. It's something I'll never forget, to be honest with you. I'll never ever forget that for the rest of my life.
It was a massive talking point, and the whole thing was tragic. His age, it was just so tragic.
The church was absolute, you couldn't get in the church.
It was unbelievable. I didn't go in the church, I queued outside with the rest of the Newport faithful.
They held his wake in about 10 pubs. As we come down the one end of Pill, all the police were lined up just like that, you know.
The Pearces of Pill had lost one of their own, and David's death was felt across the generations.
At the wake, people were talking about him, that there was old videos at the time of some of his fights. It was very interesting. So I went to the library where I asked, you know, can I find out some information about David Pearce? But there was nothing. And then they came back to me 2 weeks later and they had one picture. What it did for me was, right, I'm not going to stop until everybody in this city knows who David Pearce is.
Luke set about keeping his uncle's memory alive.
At that time, it was just about collecting memorabilia, so people in Newport could go to the library, and if they wanted to find out about David Pearce, they could.
But his ambitions would grow beyond memorabilia. Luke wanted something more permanent to remember David by. A statue.
Not just something on a board, not something drawn on a wall, but a statue of his uncle. And I thought, well, that's a huge ask.
I just thought, nah, they won't do it. You know, because David never got the recognition that he deserved.
Luke reminds me of David. Once he's got a bone in his mouth, he can't let go until he's finished the project.
And pretty soon, he wasn't alone. Newport was behind him.
We started with 10 quid in the Angel. A client of mine said, there's 10 quid. Luke went and paid it into Santander. And I thought, we've got a bit of a battle on here. There's a lot of money to find.
You know there's going to be setbacks and bumps in the road. And it's similar to David's career, but the one thing that we'd never do is give up.
Word quickly spread about David's statue appeal, and right across the city, people were putting their hands in their pockets.
You'd approach people with buckets, you know, they didn't look like they had a lot of it. Oh, they found £1 because it was David Pearce. I just found that quite touching.
The next time we went to the Angel pub, a gentleman knocked me on the shoulder and said, here's £1,000. And I said to Luke, game on.
They were getting closer and closer to their target, but the next donation took everybody by surprise.
We were at dinner at Tredegar Park Golf Club, and they said they had a surprise for us. Next thing you know, Charles Bronson is not only saying that he wants the statue up, he's also saying that he wants a triple Black Russian.
It's Charlie, yeah? Charlie Bronson. It's about the David Bomber Pearce fight. Well, I'm a big fan of David. A proper geezer. We want that statue, that legendary statue, of David Bomber Pearce.
I was taken aback by it, you know, I was quite shocked, if I'm honest. He sent us original artwork, which we were then able to auction on the night, when we raised around £2,500 from it.
Everyone in Wales be proud. Donate a few quid. Come on, let's have it.
statue of the boxer dubbed Newport's Rocky will be unveiled later. A bronze sculpture of the former British heavyweight champion David Pearce has been built on the banks of the River Ask.
I just wanted the day to go well. I just wanted everyone to go away from that day not only proud that we'd done something good for the city and promoted the city, but just make sure that David's memory, was honoured.
It's such a surprise to see so many people there, who must have respected David and what he'd done in his life. It was really a special day.
The turnout at the statue was incredible. Again, thanks to Luke, he made sure that everything was done to perfection.
He's never going to go. He's never going to go out of people's memories or thoughts because he's there.
I don't think Luke realises even today the achievement that he made for my brother.
I am so proud. I'm so proud he's my nephew because he's brought David's memory to life.
That statue now is an inspiration. David was an inspiration. And he might not have got the recognition he deserved at the time, but he has now.
David Bomber Pearce fought for Newport, and when he could fight no more, Newport fought for him.